Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, why do some men effortlessly capture the attention of any woman they meet? It almost seems like magic, doesn't it? But here's the truth. It's not just about being good-looking, wealthy, or having social status. Sure, those things might help, but they're not the secret sauce. What truly sets these men apart is something far more subtle: the way they speak. Yes, you heard that right. High-value men possess a hidden tool that most people overlook: their words. But it's not just about what they say, it's how they say it. Their presence, their tone, and their delivery leave a lasting impact, the kind that lingers in a woman's mind long after the moment has passed. While other men come and go like background noise, these men leave an imprint. And in the next few moments, I'm going to reveal exactly how you can develop this same kind of magnetic communication. How you can learn to speak in a way that isn't just heard but remembered. A way that makes her think of you even after you've walked away. Imagine that. Just your words echoing in her mind, hours or even days after your conversation ends. So I urge you, listen carefully. This might just change the way you connect with women for the rest of your life. The power of first impressions, setting the stage for lasting intrigue. First impressions aren't just quick judgments, they're the invisible frame that shapes how everything else unfolds. And for high-value men, they know exactly how to use that moment to plant a seed of interest. While most guys try to hard bragging about success, telling loud stories, or pushing an overly charming persona, high-value men do the opposite. They don't try to impress, they leave an impression. Instead of focusing on winning her over, they aim to create a subtle, emotional imprint. They understand that attraction isn't built by words alone, but by the feeling they create in that first exchange. Because here's what most people forget: women are masters at sensing emotional energy. Long before a man finishes his sentence, she's already picked up on his posture, his tone, and the energy he brings into the space. It's not just what you say, it's how you make her feel. And that feeling, that's what sticks. When a high-value man speaks, he's not performing, he's present, calm, centered. He speaks less, but says more. His presence does the heavy lifting. The unspoken language of confidence, commanding respect without saying a word. True confidence is never loud. It doesn't need to be. In fact, real confidence is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. And here's the key: you can't fake it. A high-value man knows exactly who he is. He walks into any room, any situation, with a calm assurance that he brings value without needing to announce it. Watch him closely. His posture, upright, grounded. His steps, measured, not rushed. His gaze, direct, but never aggressive. He's not trying to prove anything because he has nothing to prove. When he speaks, his words are deliberate. He doesn't ramble or fill the silence with meaningless talk. He understands that silence can be powerful and that confidence doesn't always speak first. Each sentence is chosen with care. Every pause is intentional. It's in this unspoken language, his presence, his stillness, his calm tone, that women begin to sense something different, something rare, something unforgettable. Speaking at a steady pace does something most men completely overlook. It draws people in. It shows you're in control, not just of your words, but of yourself. It signals something powerful without needing to say much at all. Confidence, calm, and poise. You see, real confidence isn't about being loud, forceful, or constantly taking up space. It's about being intentional, grounded, and real. Women are naturally drawn to men who don't feel the need to prove themselves every time they open their mouths. When a man speaks with clarity and calmness, when he isn't trying to dominate the conversation or rush to impress, it stands out. It speaks to a deeper, unshakable inner strength. And sometimes, it's the silence that speaks the loudest. Yes, silence, when used intentionally, is one of the most underrated tools in conversation. A moment of quiet gives her space to reflect, to feel, to breathe in the moment. It creates a sense of mystery and anticipation, allowing the emotional connection to deepen naturally. It's during those brief pauses that something subtle but powerful happens. She starts to lean in, not just physically, but emotionally. Emotional resilience, the calm in the storm. Stability is the silent magnet. Let's face it, life is chaotic. Emotions fluctuate. People test boundaries. And in that ever-changing storm, Women instinctively look for someone who feels like solid ground, a safe harbor, and that's where high-value men shine. They project emotional stability. They don't get easily flustered. If she teases him playfully or throws a light challenge his way, he doesn't get defensive or take it too seriously. He doesn't react with frustration or irritation. Instead, he leans into the moment. He might smile, laugh it off, or respond with playful confidence, showing that he's unfazed. This kind of emotional composure is magnetic. It sends a subtle but powerful message: I am not easily shaken. And that's the kind of energy women are drawn to, often without even realizing why. Every interaction is an opportunity for a high-value man to demonstrate that he is grounded. While others scramble for approval or overreact to small comments, he stands steady. He's not trying to control the situation, he's already in control of himself. And that difference, that's what makes him unforgettable. Subtle gestures that speak louder than words, connection in the details. High-value men don't rely on grand gestures to leave their mark. They don't need to show off or create dramatic moments. Instead, they understand something far more powerful: the impact of small, intentional actions. It could be the steady calm in their voice, the way they hold eye contact without blinking too much or looking away nervously, the slight nod of the head to show they're listening, the relaxed posture that shows they're present, not anxious, not trying too hard. Even their hands tell a story: no fidgeting, no crossing arms in self-defense, just open, relaxed, confident body language. And here's the truth: women notice more than most men realize. They read these micro-expressions, these minor movements, with incredible sensitivity. They can feel the energy behind your presence even when you're not saying a word. So while others try to impress with noise, the high-value man impresses with stillness, with awareness, with subtlety. And that kind of connection, quiet yet powerful, lasts far beyond the moment. The allure of mystery, holding something back, sparks curiosity. In today's hyper-connected world, where everyone is oversharing on social media, mystery has become rare and incredibly attractive. Most people put everything on display right away. But high-value men know better. They understand that revealing everything too quickly drains the interaction of its spark. Why rush to explain your whole life in the first 5 minutes? Where's the intrigue in that? Women are drawn to what they don't fully understand. It's basic human nature. We're wired to chase the unknown, to solve puzzles, to lean into curiosity. And when a man maintains just enough mystery, he becomes irresistible. He doesn't lie, he doesn't play games, he simply doesn't feel the need to unfold everything all at once. And that restraint creates excitement. A woman starts wondering, who is this man really? That's when she leans in, not just to hear your words, but to feel your essence. For example, when she asks a question about your past or your plans, a high-value man doesn't rush into a detailed explanation. He might smile, give a thoughtful but concise answer, or redirect with his own question, not to avoid but to engage, because he knows what you leave unsaid is often more powerful than what you reveal. Let's say someone asks a high-value man about his work. He doesn't launch into a detailed job description or list his accomplishments. Instead, he might simply say, "It's a bit unique, but I really enjoy it." Just like that, short, calm, and confident. And yet, those few words do something powerful. They spark curiosity. He leaves her wondering, what does he do exactly? Why is it unique? What makes him enjoy it? And just like that, he's in her thoughts even after the conversation is over. She might find herself replaying that line in her head, trying to solve the puzzle he left behind. And that's exactly what a high-value man intends, embracing deliberate ambiguity, less detail, more depth. One of the most overlooked traits of high-value individuals is their ability to use deliberate ambiguity as a strength. While some people avoid questions out of discomfort or fear, high-value men use a touch of mystery not to confuse but to engage. It's about sharing just enough to hold attention, while leaving the rest to the imagination. For example, instead of rattling off a list of hobbies when asked, he might say, "I've been working on something that really excites me. I'll tell you about it sometime." That's it. Simple, intentional, and guess what? Now she's intrigued. She begins to imagine what this project could be. She starts to wonder what he's passionate about, What drives him? What story lies underneath that calm demeanor? That anticipation builds a bridge to the next conversation. She wants to see him again, not just to spend time together, but to uncover a bit more of the mystery. And that's the beauty of ambiguity. It doesn't push people away. It pulls them closer. High-value men understand that they don't need to share everything to be memorable. In fact, sharing too much too soon often ruins the magic. When you give someone space to imagine, you invite them into a deeper level of engagement. Strategic silence, the pause that captures, creating tension with intentional quiet. Another powerful way high-value men maintain mystery is through something few dare to master: strategic silence. Most people feel uncomfortable when a conversation pauses, so they rush to fill it. But high-value individuals know that silence, when used skillfully, can be an emotional amplifier. They let quiet moments breathe. They allow tension to build, not the awkward kind, but the kind that draws attention and forces deeper thought. When a high-value man shares an intriguing idea or asks a meaningful question, he doesn't immediately jump in to explain himself. He lets it linger. Why? Because silence invites reflection. It creates a space where words can settle, where thoughts can land. It tells the other person, "I'm not desperate for your reaction. I'm patient. I'm present." Imagine this. You say something unexpected or ask a thought-provoking question. Then you simply let the silence stretch, just for a few seconds. In that brief pause, something shifts. The other person begins to process you differently. They lean in. They engage more fully. You've created not just a conversation but an experience, playing the long game, unfolding slowly, leaving a mark. Mystery, of course, works best when it's paired with patience. High-value men are never in a rush to prove themselves or tell their whole story up front. They understand that the strongest connections are built slowly with consistency, intrigue, and emotional presence. They embrace what you could call the slow burn approach. Each time they interact with someone, they might share just one small new detail. A short story here, a thoughtful insight there. Never overwhelming, never oversharing, just small, intentional moments of truth. Over time, this builds a rich and layered connection. She begins to feel like she's discovering something new with every encounter, like slowly turning the pages of a book you never wanted to finish. And in doing so, he sets himself apart from the majority of men who try to impress too much, too fast. Because here's the secret: the more time someone invests in discovering you, the more valuable you become in their eyes. High-value men don't play for quick wins. They don't seek instant approval. They're not rushing to be understood. Instead, they play the long game with calmness, with confidence, and with quiet precision. By revealing yourself slowly, piece by piece, you're doing something subtle yet powerful, keeping her engaged. Each conversation becomes a stepping stone, and each new layer you reveal builds tension in a good way. It's the kind of tension that leaves her not just interested, but eager for the next interaction. This gradual reveal doesn't just create curiosity, it builds emotional anticipation. The connection starts to feel richer, deeper, and more personal. She isn't just talking to another guy, she's uncovering a story, your story. And the mystery you carry becomes the thread that pulls her back again and again, wanting to understand more of who you are, creating emotional impact, speaking to the heart, not just the mind. What truly separates high-value men from the rest isn't just their presence or their confidence, it's their ability to create emotional experiences in every interaction. They don't just talk, they move people. Their words linger not because they're clever, but because they make others feel something. They understand something most men don't. People remember how you make them feel more than what you say. That's why high-value men avoid staying on the surface for too long. They move quickly past the meaningless small talk and into conversations that matter. Instead of asking, "So what do you do for work?" they ask, "What kind of work makes you feel alive?" Instead of "How's your week been?" they might ask, "What's one thing you've done recently that challenged you?" These aren't just questions, they're invitations. Invitations to explore values, passion, growth, and truth. And in doing so, they create an emotional roller coaster that holds attention, sparks connection, and keeps the energy alive. Asking thought-provoking questions, going beneath the surface. If you want to create a lasting connection, Learn to ask better questions. High-value men never settle for surface-level talk. They're not interested in memorized answers or rehearsed lines. They want realness, depth, insight. So instead of the cliché, "What's your favorite color?" they'll say, "What's something you're passionate about that most people wouldn't expect from you?" Or, "What's the most exciting thing you've done this year?" These kinds of questions do something powerful. They disarm the other person's autopilot. Suddenly, the conversation feels different, more thoughtful, more alive. She begins to reflect, to open up, to share more of her inner world, and when that happens, a bond begins to form. It's no longer just talk. It becomes a shared moment of genuine connection. That's what makes the difference. While most men are content talking about the weather, a high-value man knows how to take a conversation into the soul. Storytelling to evoke emotion. Stories that make her feel something. Now, if there's one tool high-value men use consistently to create emotional impact, it's storytelling. But not just any story. They don't tell stories to impress. They tell them to connect. Each story is carefully chosen not to highlight themselves, but to evoke a specific emotion. For example, if they want to convey a sense of adventure, they might casually share about the time they booked a last-minute flight, traveled with nothing but a backpack, and ended up hiking a mountain they hadn't even planned to find. If the goal is to show vulnerability, they might open up about a tough challenge they faced, maybe a moment of doubt, failure, or personal growth, not to seek sympathy, but to show authenticity, to say, "I've been through something, and I came out stronger." When these stories are shared with honesty and humility, something amazing happens. The listener doesn't just hear them, they feel them. They're pulled into the memory as if they were there, experiencing it side by side. That emotional immersion makes the conversation memorable. It builds empathy, and it leaves a lasting impression. Because again, it's not about telling stories to get attention. It's about inviting connection, creating emotional hooks, moments that linger. Every high-value conversation has something powerful woven into it, emotional hooks. These are the moments that stick with someone long after the conversation ends. They're subtle, sometimes even unspoken, but they pull the listener back, mentally replaying certain moments, words, or feelings. Maybe it's a line that made her laugh unexpectedly, or a question that made her think about something in a way she never had before, or a story that hit close to home. These are the things she remembers hours later, or even days later, when she's lying in bed and suddenly finds herself thinking, "There was something different about him." That's the power of emotional hooks. They're not forced, they happen organically. When your words are intentional, your energy is present, and your goal is to create meaning, not just get attention. And that's where real connection begins. High-value men understand the power of emotional hooks, and more importantly, they know how to plant them throughout an interaction. These aren't random moments. They're small but intentional sparks, designed to be remembered. A well-placed compliment, a perfectly timed playful tease, a shared laugh that feels effortless and sincere. For example, rather than saying something generic like "You look nice," he might offer a deeper, more meaningful compliment. "I really admire how passionate you are about that. It's refreshing to meet someone with that kind of energy." That kind of comment hits differently. Why? Because it goes beyond appearance and taps into character. It shows attentiveness, appreciation, and sincerity all in one short sentence. And most importantly, it creates an emotional anchor. She's likely to replay that moment in her mind, not just because of what was said, but because of how it made her feel. The power of absence. Mastering the push-pull dynamic. One of the most underrated tools in the emotional toolkit of a high-value man is the push-pull dynamic, the delicate balance between being emotionally present and then gracefully stepping back. Here's the secret. They don't stay in constant pursuit. They don't hover, and they certainly don't smother. Instead, they offer their full attention during the interaction, engaged, present, connected, and then they pull back, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a form of healthy distance. Why? Because they understand a timeless truth. Too much of anything, even something good, can lose its value. After a great conversation, a high-value man allows a bit of space. He lets silence do its work. He gives her room to reflect, to miss his energy, to feel the difference between presence and absence. And in that gap, something powerful happens. She begins to replay the exchange. She remembers the warmth, the laughter, the emotional pull, and she starts looking forward to the next encounter. It's in that space that desire quietly begins to grow, avoiding the trap of over-communication. Why less truly is more in today's hyper-connected world of instant messages, voice notes, and typing bubbles. It's easy to fall into the trap of over-communication. Many people feel pressure to stay constantly available, to keep texting, replying, checking in. But high-value individuals know better. They know that scarcity breeds value. Instead of flooding the other person with constant attention, they create breathing room between interactions. This space builds anticipation. It makes each conversation feel intentional, not obligatory. It gives the other person time to feel the absence, to wonder what you're doing, and to realize they miss your energy. This isn't about playing games. It's about giving the connection space to breathe, evolve, and deepen. Because when every message isn't instantly followed by another, when you don't feel the need to comment on every post or send emojis every hour, you stand out. You feel more grounded, more centered, and that emotional space amplifies attraction. Depth over impressions. It's not about saying more, it's about saying what matters. At the heart of it all, building a meaningful connection isn't about dazzling someone with constant communication or trying to impress them at every turn. It's about creating an emotional resonance, a moment, a memory, or a feeling they can't quite shake. And that comes from quality, not quantity. When you combine patience, quiet confidence, and just the right touch of mystery, something shifts. You're no longer chasing attention, you're attracting curiosity. You're no longer trying to prove your worth, you're simply embodying it. This approach doesn't just make you more attractive, it makes you unforgettable. Communication and the art of creating space. Be present, then pull back. High-value individuals have mastered a principle most overlook. Creating space is just as important as connection. When you're always available, always texting, always replying, always online, you lose some of the magnetism that makes your presence feel special. Think about it. If someone can reach you 24/7, where's the excitement in the next message? Where's the build-up, the anticipation? But when you're intentional about your availability, when you know how and when to step back, you create room for desire to grow, room for curiosity, room for memory to work its magic. In that quiet space, they begin to wonder, what's he doing right now? Why hasn't he messaged yet? I kind of miss talking to him. And that's when you've created something truly powerful, not just interest, but emotional investment. When you're always available, constantly texting back right away or responding within seconds, you unknowingly remove one of the most powerful ingredients of attraction, anticipation. Without mystery, without pauses, there's no time for emotional buildup. There's no space for them to wonder, to imagine, to feel your absence in a way that makes them crave your presence again. High-value men strike a different balance. They are intentional with their availability. Maybe they wait a few hours before replying to a message. Maybe they let a full day pass before reaching out. Not out of rudeness, not to play games, but because they understand something crucial. Attraction doesn't only live in presence, it grows in absence. When you're not always there, the mind begins to wander. What's he up to? Why hasn't he messaged yet? Is he thinking about me? That uncertainty becomes powerful. It's not anxiety, it's emotional investment. And it makes reconnecting feel even more meaningful. The art of leaving them wanting more, ending on a high note. High-value men also know when to end a conversation, and more importantly, how to do it. They don't wait until the energy drops or the interaction becomes stale. Instead, they leave when the conversation is still vibrant and engaging. They understand the value of leaving someone with a sense of excitement rather than exhaustion. Imagine this: after a fun, emotionally charged exchange, instead of dragging things out, he smiles and says, "Hey, I've got to run, but I'd love to continue this sometime soon." Just like that, he leaves on a high note, not only preserving the emotional energy, but also planting a reason for the next conversation. That moment lingers. She walks away not feeling drained or bored, but wanting more, and that's where anticipation begins again. Because when someone exits with confidence and purpose, they don't feel like they're disappearing. They feel like they're leaving a door open. just enough to keep her curious about when it will swing open again. Mastering the art of re-engagement. Timing is everything. Now, creating space is one thing, but knowing when and how to re-enter that space, that's a whole different skill. And it's one that high-value individuals master. Reaching out too soon can feel needy or rushed. Waiting too long, and the connection can cool down or even disappear. The magic lies in timing and sensing when curiosity is rising. But before detachment sets in, it's not random, it's thoughtful. High-value men re-engage with purpose, not just to check in, but to reignite the spark. They might refer back to something meaningful from the last conversation, like a shared interest, a personal story, or even an inside joke. For example, instead of sending a bland "hey," they might say, "Remember that trip you told me about? I found something that reminded me of it, gotta share it with you." That kind of message does more than reopen communication. It continues the emotional story. It shows that they were truly listening, that they value not just the moment, but the person they shared it with. Re-engaging with depth, more than just a text. When high-value men choose to re-engage, they don't do it half-heartedly. They bring energy, intent, and depth. Their message doesn't feel like a cold restart, it feels like a continuation of something meaningful. They don't just ask, "How's your week?" They ask, "Have you made any progress on that project you mentioned? Or did you ever take that leap you were thinking about?" These questions aren't just polite, they're personal. They show genuine interest, and more importantly, they reflect emotional memory. It tells the other person, "I remembered you, I listened, and I care." This kind of thoughtful re-engagement reignites not just communication, but connection. It feels real, warm, valuable, and that's why it works. High-value men don't fall into the trap of shallow conversations. They don't just send "what's up" texts or meaningless small talk. Instead, they build on the emotional foundation they carefully laid during their previous interaction. They remember the little things and they bring them up with purpose. For example, if she once mentioned a project she was passionate about, a high-value man might say, "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said last time. How's that project going?" That one line, it shows that he listened, that he cared, that the conversation wasn't just passing time, it mattered. And suddenly, she feels seen, not just heard, but truly understood. This kind of re-engagement goes far beyond surface-level interaction. It nurtures trust, emotional intimacy, and genuine interest. It tells her, "I remember what matters to you." And that creates something rare, a connection that lingers, even when you're not around. Conclusion: communication as a pathway to deeper connection. This is what high-value men understand. For high-value men, communication isn't just about speaking, it's about feeling, about shaping each interaction with intentionality, adding layers of mystery, emotional depth, and anticipation. They don't flood the other person with constant words. Instead, they know how to create space to be missed, to be remembered. And when they return, they do so with purpose, bringing back emotional threads, reconnecting meaningfully, deepening the bond. It's never just about saying more, it's about saying what matters at the right moment with the right energy. Mastering these techniques creates a powerful shift in how others respond to you. You'll notice it quickly. You no longer feel the need to chase, to over-explain, or to constantly prove your worth. Instead, people naturally start gravitating toward you, drawn not only by your presence, but by the mystery, calm confidence, and emotional impact you radiate. And that's when the real magic happens. You won't have to ask if they're thinking about you. You'll already know, because when you're not around, they'll miss you. That's the quiet strength of a high-value man. He doesn't chase, he attracts.